You know when you walk on stage, and I do stage a lot, there's a thing of Coke that's just fallen over here, so I want to make sure it's not going to set this thing on fire. There we go, that's right. Fire alert over. You may notice my accent isn't from this area, so I'm not going to talk the history of New London or Mystic in the 1950s. But I'm originally from Watford in the UK, just outside London, on the River Thames. I now live in Waterford, just outside New London on the River Thames, so I figure it's there or thereabouts. You know, I'm going to speak heresy for a moment. I don't particularly believe in bookstores, but I will caveat
Wait a moment for that.
I believe in stories. I believe in the importance of stories. To each of us, at a personal level, we're all living a story. Everyone is a story. There's no two ways about it. Cognitive programming, confirmation bias, everything. We tell a story every day. And not only that, we tell stories with each other. We wouldn't learn about what happened in New London when it was made a city. Cities in the UK are like 60,000 people, not small. But we wouldn't know that unless we were sharing it. This is how we shared our collective wisdom and our knowledge with each other. And I tell stories because I can't help but tell stories. They hit me, and what can I do but share it? My last novel last year, which was written in 4 months, took me by surprise completely and arrived. And it was really a meditation on the US political spectrum and what was happening globally, but also then in small towns, how that's mirrored. And the point is, I believe, that right now, global stories that were invented in the 20th century that we take as normality, superpowers, the idea of superpowers, the idea of global trade, the idea that an all-seeing government can prevent everything from happening and protect us from everything, all of those stories are breaking down because they don't work. They're an invention of the 20th century. And what I believe is emerging in their absence, or as the fallacy of those stories show up, is the true story of humanity, which is together we get things done. And together, locally, we get things done. Music gets played locally. You listen to singers. You used to listen to CDs, but CDs were only around for, what, 15 years before they became outdated? We sing, we hear, we tell stories, we read. Reading is very important. Sometimes we listen. Sometimes we listen. Sometimes we don't listen, which is, we learn. We learn from each other, and we tell stories to each other. So when I friended Chris out of the blue, I can't even remember how it happened on Facebook, but we were on Facebook. There you go. There's a new thing for authors to think about, right? So we got to know each other, and a little story developed. And I heard about the bookstore and got very excited about the bookstore, not because of books, and not because of the classic view of an author walking around and stroking their chin and reading things, but because here was a place where we could come together and tell stories. And so last week, when Chris and I bumped into each other at the Whaley Awards down the way, Chris mentions the word workshops. I think I literally levitated. I was like probably about 4 feet off the ground. I do some work as a writing coach, one-to-one with writers, to help them through writer's block, to help them understand what's underneath their block and how they can turn their writing into a magnet to pull them towards their writing, which is exciting for me. It gives me a buzz even when I speak about it. But I have been talking about doing workshops for that. So now I've got a home to start doing those workshops, and I talked to Chris about doing those as pro bono for basically helping the bookshop get some money as the bookstore gets going. You know, this is what I do. I help people tell stories. So that was one point. And then about 3 weeks ago, I went to my daughter's 7, and they had a community worker program, and she asked me to go and talk about writing, which I thought was quite amazing. There was this fire officers, police officers, nurses, people who run daycare centres, and there's me, somebody who just sits and has a laugh writing. And they asked me to talk about writing, and so what I did, instead of talking about writing, was I sat groups of 7-year-olds down and got them to tell me stories. And it was the most wonderful experience, because what I did was I said, here's my favourite tool, because we're meant to bring tools of the trade. And I got one of my notebooks, and it was empty, and I just said, here it is. And I just opened it. And then they said, well, we don't see anything. You know, 7-year-olds, they all looked up and, oh, I see lines. And so I said to these 7-year-olds, I said, no, can you not see the robot? And they said, There's no robot on the page. If they'd been older, they probably would have cursed at me and walked out. But anyway, and even the adult helpers that were there were going, I can't see a robot. And so I just asked them, what does a robot look like? Sure enough, a robot's square. It's silver. It's got eyes. What color are his eyes? Its eyes are red. Do they flash? Yeah, they flash. Why is its eyes flashing? What's it looking at? And sure enough, within, I want to say 3 to 4 minutes, these kids start buzzing. And I get them for 5 minutes, just free-forming. We're talking about cities underground, over top, under deserts, in the woods. They're fighting to save the world. They're fighting to destroy the world against the humans who don't want to keep them. This whole thing goes off. I wish I could have taken it. It was the most wonderful experience. And then right at the end, this is really the crux of this whole experience for me. Right at the end, I said, close your eyes. And all the kids and the adults. I said, who can see the robot? All the hands went up because suddenly we'd shared something and we had something that was ours. And together they'd done it. And suddenly all the barriers and all the energy of friction and the stuff that we deal with day in, day out of, I know right, you know wrong, I don't believe in you, you don't believe in me, and screw you, I don't care. All of that dropped away. These kids who had been hyperactive ADD and bouncing all over the place when I started them, they were in with me in the story. And to me, when I think about the bookstore, and what I hear Chris and Gina talk about the bookstore, it's not books. I mean, tactically it's books, and to the touch it's books, but to me it's story, and it's the story of a city that's coming back, that's regenerating itself, and it's a story of a city that together can actually get something done. So with that, I'm going to shut up because otherwise I can talk for hours. But anyway, let me say one thing. I talked to Chris and Gina about this. I was going to come with a big box of books, and there's a lot of books I can sell you. But here's the bottom line. For the next month, the month of June, all my books are available at vincet.net. You can go and find them. Just look for Vince T on the web, you'll find me. Basically, if you buy a book off my website, one of my books, at least $5 from that book will go to towards the bookstore. So the more people who buy the book, I love it because you're reading it anyway, but it's not profit to me, it's the story, so the $5 will go to the bookstore. So thank you very much. Come and talk to me if you want to, I'm happy to talk about it.